Well, folks, Canada is going to be facing a federal snap election here soon, and it's going to be a big one. Now, the deadline was initially set for October of this year, and I believe they've just called it. It'll be April 28th, a 5-week election period, followed by the election on April 28th. And let's face the reality about this. This is not just about someone who's going to be running Ottawa. For Alberta, at least, this could really be a breaking point, whether they're going to be staying in Canada or looking for other players to either declare their own independence or to join up with a southern ally. So we're going to break it all down for you today. The election, the different players in the election, what is at stake for Alberta here, and really why Alberta is so fed up with what's going on here. So before we get into it, drop down below, hit that subscribe button, make sure you never miss another video from us again in the future. So as we know, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is out. After Trudeau resigned, the Liberals tapped Mark Carney, who is the ex-leader of the Bank of Canada, to really take the helm in the Liberal Party. And the Conservative Party in Canada is led by Pierre Poilievre, who really has been he's the firebrand populist who's been the opposition to Trudeau for years now. Whether it's on inflation, it's like he's the guy out there who's consistently hammering the Liberals on inflation, housing, carbon taxes, all the radical policies that are being implemented throughout the Canadian government that are making life more unaffordable for everyday Canadians. But Trump's tariff threat and his threats to take over Canada have really flipped the scripts on the Conservatives in this race. It's like there is no doubt about this, that it has completely flipped the race on its head. This election has turned from a referendum on Trudeau to a referendum on who can stand up to the United States and fix Canada's mess at the same time, which is giving the Liberals an advantage right now because they're the ones in power. They're the ones who are standing up to Trump, you could say right now. It has become more of a forefront to stand up to Trump than it has been to deal with the mess that's on Canadians' hands. There's a great thing put out on Twitter that I just really resonate with. Quote, Canada's mainstream media is framing the federal election as all about Trump. Trump didn't double Canada's debt. Trump didn't double Canada's cost of housing, and Trump didn't devalue the Canadian dollar. Ain't that the truth? Keep this in mind for all the people from Canada watching. Trump did not do that to you. Trump did not double your debt. He did not make it unaffordable to live in your country. And we know this is going to be a tight race, and leaders in Alberta and the people in Alberta are watching closely. The outcome could push them out the door. It's like there is really no doubt about that at this point. I truly believe that if we see another Liberal takeover in Ottawa, we're going to see some very serious consideration about Alberta leaving Greater Canada. Now, polls right now are kind of all over the place. You have some polls with the Conservatives leading like a 39 to 32 over the Liberals, with some other polls showing that the Liberals are leading by like 40 to 37%. So really, we're looking at a statistical dead heat here. And Conservatives have dominated for the last 18 months in Poland by double digits. Then Trudeau quit, Carney stepped in, Trump's tariff threats really started to shake things up in the Canadian, in the discourse in Canada. And betting markets right now have really, we have this since January, have really convened. It's like the Conservative Party had a 92, 93, 94% chance of winning the most seats in the Canadian election. Now, they're basically in a statistical dead heat right now when it comes to the betting markets. So it's like, obviously they leaned conservative previously, but this is definitely not a lock. And there's a there's a good chance that the Conservatives could be a minority in this government moving forward. But as of right now, it is very much too close to call. And the uncertainty definitely has some of these more conservative provinces on edge. And I don't blame them. Poland is just a snapshot. It is not a crystal ball. Let's be honest about this. Conservatives lead on cost of living issues in Canada. That's just the reality. But when it comes to relations with the United States, the Liberals seem to have an edge by about 6 or 7 points right now. And betting odds, they shift daily. Like, these could jump around. Like, just in the last week, it's like they've changed which. Is there that big of a difference between 55-45 for the Conservatives and 55-45 for the Liberals? No. It's like you're really still in a statistical dead heat. But the reality is we're here to talk about Alberta. That's what we're here. Alberta is not buying into this national hype. They just aren't. Local sentiment is clear. They do not trust Ottawa, period. They don't. Markets and polls agree. It's a coin toss, and a weak minority government could spell chaos in Canada. This could be a perfect storm for Alberta to truly rethink its future. Now, there could be some huge implications if Liberals win in Canada again. If Liberals win, especially with Mark Carney, they will double down on their radical green policies, their net zero grids by 2035. They will cap oil and gas emissions, and Alberta's dead oil patch, it's probably dead in the water at that point. It's like, let's be real about this. Let's see what they're going to. It is not going to be good. The policies that are going to be implemented by Ottawa will not be good for Alberta or the greater Canada as a whole. It's like, even just look, this is back when Trudeau was elected, when he became the prime minister, back on January 13th, 2017. This is what Trudeau said. And now, granted, think about the fact that Alberta is a huge producer of natural gases and oil that gets shipped into the United States. We can't shut down the oil lands tomorrow. We need to phase them out. We need to manage the transition off our dependence on fossil fuels. It's going to take time. Yeah, that truly shows why he is very, very unpopular in Alberta, and why it is a significant rallying point for the people from Alberta. Now, Trump's tariff he's been threatening a 25% tariff on Canadian goods. It is going to hit harder under the Liberals. Carney might be able to negotiate, but he is not a fighter. Poilievre, Canada First, is going to align, and it's like the United States is going to get a better deal with Poilievre. It's like, let's just be honest about this. America will get a better deal if Poilievre is there. That's just my thought. And the reality is that these equalization payments in Canada are going to stay untouched. Alberta keeps footing the bill for Quebec's radical social programs, and Ottawa is like turning around and choking its energy sector. And a liberal minority, or a liberal majority, it's like you could see more of the same. Tax hikes, regulations, and really zero love for the West. That's really what it's going to come down to. And Alberta's patience is running thin, and I don't blame them for wanting to leave. Because a liberal win really could be the final straw, pushing them to say, hey, we're done. We're out. We've had enough fun. We've had enough fun really subsidizing the rest of Canada that does not produce as much as Alberta. They are a net contributor when it comes to the federal budget. And it's really just redistribution of income from Alberta to these other ones where they have vast social welfare programs. It's like, why should Alberta... It's like Alberta could become part of the United States. They could lose this 25% tariff that could go on them. Won't even have to worry about that. Become the 51st state of America. Two Republican senators, a couple GOP representatives. I'm all about it. Because Alberta and Saskatchewan are Canada's economic engines. Oil, gas, and agriculture. That is what drives their economies there. But yet, in Canada, they feel like they're second-class provinces. They really do. Ottawa is obsessed with the central Canada, Ontario and Quebec. And while these western provinces truly just get ignored and punished. Trudeau, he vilified fossil fuels. Well, Alberta is pumping out almost 5 million barrels a day, which creates jobs, wealth. And, Trudeau and the Liberals want to trash it for the climate optics that come along with it. But here's the reality is Canada would not be able to afford the vast social programs that they have if they didn't have Alberta and Saskatchewan producing tons of oil and gas. They wouldn't. And even the Saskatchewan's premier, Scott Moe, is on the same page. It is federal overreach. They have weak borders and a system that screws resources that are provinces that are wealthy when it comes to these natural resources. And instead, they're going to defer to the radical liberals in Ontario and Quebec that want to completely shut down fossil fuels. They want to bite the hand that's feeding them. Well, I hope you do. And I would be glad to take in Alberta as the 51st state of the United States, because I realistically don't think we're going to see the Canada as a whole come over to the United States. I just don't see it. Do I think it would be good either? No. It's like you talk about Greater Canada. It's like this is going to add, even if you cut it up into multiple states, this is going to be many liberal senators. It's like there are more liberal voters in Canada. It's like adding another California, basically, if you're looking at the population size. But I would not be against Alberta. They're a more conservative Western province. They are oil and gas rich, and I most likely have rare earth minerals and different resources that would help the United States become less reliant on China. And they could deal with the United States where they could be valued as a state. They're not going to be sending money to Washington, D.C. to subsidize the rest of the states. We want you to keep more of your money. We want you to develop your state. We want you to drive economic growth and opportunity in your states. We don't want radical liberal politicians, shaming you for how resource rich you are, how much money you make, and then when you subsidize the rest of the government, but you still are getting choked out by the... So it's like, we want your money, keep doing what you're doing because we want your money, but we're going to choke you out for the optics of it. It's like, that's basically what's happening to Alberta and Canada right now. And the separatist movement has been growing. These vibes date back to like 2019 and have even got louder during like COVID and what happened with the truckers. What the United States can offer is less red tape and more respect for your energy independence. And like we said, the equalization payments are the big sore spot. Alberta paid billions, 11 to 12 billion in a year into a system that props up the have-nots, like these other provinces that have all these vast social programs that then can't afford them. Because since 1965, Alberta has not gotten a dime back. Quebec, billions annually. It's welfare for provinces that block pipelines like the Trans Mountain Pipeline. In a 2021 referendum, 62% of people from Alberta voted to ditch the equalization from the Constitution. Ottawa shrugged and said and can't change it without 7 provinces and 50% of the population agreeing, which isn't going to happen because these other ones are basically on a welfare state. They're dependent, but maybe if they threaten to leave, maybe if there's some real action to leave, which granted, there are laws on how this would play out. In Canada, the Clarity Act, which has been approved by the Supreme Court of Canada, governs the process by which a province should follow to achieve separation. So it's not like this is something that would be criminal or illegal. There is a legal mechanism that these people can go through if they want to separate from Canada. And Premier Danielle Smith is blunt. We can't keep funding Quebec's handouts. Conservatives dodged the issue, and it's too risky for votes in the East. A liberal win will lock this in. Alberta's thinking, why stay in a country that takes our money and then spits in our face and chokes us out? Why? And I don't blame them. Why would you want to? You're getting absolutely choked out by these liberals. They're going to shame you because of climate change, but then they want the profits that you made from and the tax revenue that you made from your oil and gas exports. It's just ridiculous. And Alberta, they're angry. A recent poll from the University of Alberta from 2023 shows that 44% of people from Alberta do not even understand what equalization is. And 85% think that Quebec is milking it. Even if they don't understand what it is, they believe that Quebec is milking this from them. And the United Conservatives won post-2023 election, won 63% outside of Calgary and Edmonton. Rural Alberta's solid blow. It's a city thing. Separation's polling at, 20 to 30% consistently per 338 Canada. And if Liberals win and tariffs hit, that may jump to 40 or 50%. Because Albertans trust Pierre Poilievre over Carney. But it really seems like they may trust the United States more than either. And the sentiment is shifting. Canada does not want us. And if Canada doesn't, America will. I guarantee you, we will be here with open arms. And granted, it's not easy, but it is doable. And first, you need to have a referendum. You know, they had a referendum in 2021, and 62% said yes to scrapping the equalization payments. Step 2 would be to negotiate with Ottawa. You know, the Supreme Court's Quebec sessions ruling says that Canada has to talk if a province votes to leave. It's like, that's just the reality. And, you know, look at what are the U.S. interests. Trump's hinted at Canada as a 51st state. Alberta is oil. Oil and gas. Very resource rich, would be very beneficial for the United States. They would fit right in here. And now, granted, you have to have a reality check. It's a long shot. This needs 60 or 70% support in Alberta plus a U.S. buy-in. But if Liberals win, tariffs go on, and the green agenda and equalization payments continue forward, this could continue to tip the scales towards Alberta leaving and Saskatchewan leaving Canada. Western Canada could split off and join the U.S. as a bloc. It may be far-fetched, but now is the time. Now is the time to start these dominoes falling. If Canada is not going to respect the wishes of Saskatchewan and Alberta, the United States will. We will take them in with open arms. So, like I said, to wrap it up, this election is a fork in the road. Conservatives win, Alberta might stay. Grudgingly, but Liberals win. These Western provinces are really going to start looking at what the door looks like. And Alberta's not bluffing. They've got the resources, the will, a neighbor who's going to take them on, and they have enough money that their economy generates. They could be in a budget surplus right now if they didn't have to pay these equalization payments. Because Ottawa has ignored the West, Saskatchewan, and Alberta for too long. These equalization payments are a complete slap in the face, and their green policies are a chokehold. So mark my words, if Mark Carney is in power by the fall, Alberta, it will be counting its days till there's a 51st star on the United States flag. So that's going to wrap things up for today. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and we will catch you next time, folks.